You're 30 seconds over your half. Okay, so quickly I'm going to jump on. Perhaps more than anything ever representing the transnatural, we could say, is the robot. So looking back historically, and this actually follows on quite nicely from some of the things Sasha was saying, it's a reflection of the technology of the moment. Going back all the way to Jewish mythology, you have the golem. This was using magic and superstition to bring the artificial to life, to bring clay, in this case, you would breathe clay to life to create this living being. Moving forward to the Frankenstein myth, Mary Shelley wrote this around the time of Galvani's experiments with electricity and shocking frogs. And people thought that this would have the capability of shocking living material or dead material to life. So this is what was happening in Frankenstein. But around the same time, you have the thinking of Descartes and Cartesian notions of duality, where he was suggesting if you take a monkey, take all of the individual elements of that monkey, replicate them through mechanical means, you'll have a mechanical monkey and it will effectively be a living thing. This idea of mechanisms and life being almost one and the same. And the Cartesians were effectively saying that animals were machines. This weird notion of humans having a soul and being separate from other animals. Sorry, I was going to say this is Varkansen's defecating duck. It was a duck that through mechanisms it would swallow, it would digest, and it would defecate poo at the other side of the machine. And this was created a huge stir in 18th century France. People believed it was a real living thing. And this myth perpetuates, again, being updated with the leading technology of the day. So here in 1939, you had the Westinghouse Corporation. They're a telecommunications company. And they were basically using transistors and the various components that were the cutting edge of telephonic technology at the day to create Electro, the first humanoid robot. This fascinated audiences at the 1939 American World Fair. And again, we see it coming through to this day. Here on the other side, you've got Asimo from Honda. Today's leading edge technology, computer technologies, accelerometers, various other things, really representing the leading edge of technology. These are effectively technological dreams where we're really showcasing what technology is capable of through this notion of replicating life. That was really the starting point for a project on robots that Jimmy and myself started about 2 years ago. The true foundation behind the project was a coming together between ourselves and a robotics lab in the UK for public engagement. It was one of these things where designers, very similar to the work that Sasha's been doing, collaborate with scientists and engineers to engage the public with what's going on inside that lab. This is the technology that lab was developing. You could say it's one of the emergent technologies in the world of robotics. This is a microbial fuel cell, and it's a device that pathetically live in your garden. And this really is a true replication of a robot being a living thing. It's got a stomach, it's got a digestive system, it can die. We thought this was fascinating, but really for the idea of public engagement, it was really, really important not to be thinking about the laboratory context and the way that they were dealing with it, but as designers, we could take the technology that they're using and this notion of robots and artificial life and so on, bring it into the home. So as designers, we don't personally build things like this, but this is a good example of the complexity of objects that we do bring into the home. This is Philippe Stark's Juicy Salif lemon squeezer, which looks kind of weird, it's pretty. It's really, really shit at squeezing lemons. The pips fall down, it's not very stable, it's really bad at squeezing lemons, but there are millions of households all around the world that have a Juicy Salif lemon squeezer. So it's this complexity of the rules of the home, if you like, the domestic space and the kind of objects we bring in there, that this kind of thing does not appeal to, that we wanted to appeal to. Sony did it a little bit, and again, coming back to the Cartesian notions of mechanization, you could argue that this is the modern representation of that. This is Sony Aibo. It's effectively copying the dog. They're kind of playful, but they're really a gadget, and due to the limitations of our skill in programming, they become predictable after about 2 weeks, and they end up in a cupboard. And you bring them out very, very occasionally, but they're not sustainable in terms of our interest and our passion for them as pets. Coming back to this idea of the fuel cell, what we thought, we could sidestep this idea of the limitations of our programming capability by introducing a random element through nature. So what's important here is they're not calling it a robot, it's an entertainment robot. So we were thinking about three different things. One is how the robots get into the home, what they're going to look like. They're not going to really look like your idea of Asimo, these big humanoid robots. That would be inappropriate in a home. Secondly is how they're going to get their food supply. We don't want to be feeding them by hand flies because that would be kind of creepy. So referencing nature, how nature captures flies. This is using the sort of field of biomimetics to copy natural techniques for bringing things into the home. I'm going to quickly jump in because time's running out, but I'll run through the robots. There are a series of 5. This is the flypaper robotic clock. As you can see, it doesn't look like a robot. It looks more like a standard domestic product. It's got a sheet of flypaper. This is covered in honey. It's suspended between 2 rollers and is powered by a motor. There's a blade at the bottom. So any flies that get stuck to the flypaper are scraped off by the blade, falling down into the microbial fuel cell, generating the electricity to power this small LCD clock at the bottom. So it's effectively a living thing. It's existing somewhere between a house plant, a pet, and a product. So it could live, it could die. We end up entering into a very, very different kind of relationship with it as a result of this. So there's a series of them. There's the lampshade robot, using the fact that flying insects are naturally attracted to light. They go through the holes, they get stuck inside because it's based on the form of a pitcher plant. They expire, falling down into the fuel cell, generating electricity to power a series of internal ultraviolet LEDs, which make it effectively energy autonomous. It can go on living through the insects that it is attracting to itself. There's a fly stealing robot living in harmony with the ecosystem of the home. This makes friends with a spider, steals the occasional fly from the spider's web with its robotic arm. It uses that to power the robotic arm, but again there are ultraviolet LEDs there which attract more flies to the web than would otherwise be the case, because we want a symbiotic relationship with the spider. If it just steals them, the spider would get pissed off and go and build his web elsewhere. There's just a quick one, the fly killer parasite robot, using an off-the-shelf fly killer, but removing the kind of bin at the bottom with a microbial fuel cell. Finally, looking at other forms of biomass in the home and the rules of the home. So rodents are seen as being pests. We don't want them in the home, so we thought they would be an appropriate fuel source for the robot. So we built it into a coffee table. It's got one oversized leg with a hole in. This gives the mice access to the tabletop. It's got an aperture mechanism in the top of the tabletop, and a small graphic energy display bar. So if you actually have captured a mouse, this starts to go up like your mobile phone. It gives you an idea that your table is alive. Final slide. We liken these kind of things to fishing, and this is how we generate this idea of entertainment or engagement or companionship with the robot. If you're fishing, you're that guy there, you're looking at your float in the water. Nothing may happen for 5 hours. You may look at it and it doesn't move at all. But the fact that it could move at any moment keeps you engaged. It keeps you somehow looking at the float, and the whole thing is a very, very alive spectacle. And it's very much the same with our robots. A fly buzzing around the room becomes like the float. It becomes an actor in this game, and your robot becomes a living predator almost that could live, it could die. And with that, I shall open up to questions.